Hello, hello, and welcome on into the Swear Word. I'm your host, Brandon Swear, and hey, this is a podcast for the chili egg community, by the chili egg community. Regardless of your spice tolerance, this is the place for you. Man, we have an amazing episode here tonight. We are going to be discussing, growing on a budget and how you can be able to keep it affordable, scalable, and really talking through the start your seeds and really get things going. But we have two sauces on deck for Hot or Not tonight. Episode 84 starts now. What's going on, Swear Nation? So glad to have everyone here. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, or Apple Podcasts, thank you so much for being here and being a part of the show. Hey, continue to share this out with other like-minded chili heads and maybe just individuals that are curious about the world of hot, because this is where you can find everything to do with the world of hot. We have two sauces on deck for Hot or Not. Both of these are from Freaky Ferments, diving in deeper to the overall Freaky Ferments series. And we'll be talking about those on Hot or Not. And then we have a very special guest. We have Jacob Deathridge back again. And now we're going to talk on the idea of, growing on a budget. What does that mean? And also some helpful growing tips for anyone that may be beating their head into the wall, trying to figure out something they have going on that has just been plaguing them. So we will start the conversation here. And then we have another episode that we will go further into the conversation of growing, as well as some other helpful tips. But let's go ahead and kick it on over to Hot or Not. Welcome on into Hot or Not. So glad to have everyone here. If this is your first time checking out Hot or Not, thank you so much for being here. I will explain here in a second. I do things a little bit different. I ultimately do not like to read the ingredients ahead of time. I like to let my taste buds do the exploration and really figure it out before reading those. I do break things down as well into 5 different categories. Those are heat, aroma, flavor, versatility, and burn. Add those up, average them out, and that gives us our total swear word rating. So that is exactly why I don't do a 1 to 10. I do a 1 out of 5 scale. But here is what we have on deck tonight. We have 2 sauces from Freaky Ferments. We have their Verde sauce, and then we have the newest sauce to drop from Freaky Ferments. We have the garlic habanero sauce. I cannot wait to jump into these. Both of them sound phenomenal. And as always, we're going to start out with what I would expect to be the least hot. So we're going to go starting out with Verde. Go ahead and give this one a good shake. And beautiful color on this sauce. Nice, dark, deep, great. True to what you would expect a Verde style sauce to be. Overall flow. I mean, you see the second it gets going, it looks like it's going pretty darn well. Perforation on the cellophane. So for those individuals that are keeping track, this does have that. I'm going to go ahead and get that opened up with my knife, though, because I enjoy a good excuse to use it. Those knives normally only get used during pod season to cut them open and see what's going on inside. But, no visual appeal on the label. Phenomenal. You got, once again, a mad scientist pouring down, some kind of vial in his mouth, and then a taco in hand. So, if I had to guess, I would say he's down in this bottle of Verde as he's getting ready to eat his taco. But let's open this one up. Oh, my goodness. Beautiful aroma on this sauce. Much more of a savory body on this. You're picking up a little bit of obviously you're picking up the fermentation process through this. All of Freaky Ferment sauces are fermented. You're picking up some savory notes. It smells like maybe some onion, quite possibly some jalapeno, maybe some serrano on that actually as well. But man, phenomenal stuff here. I cannot wait to jump in, but here we go. Cheers. Wow. Absolutely phenomenal. Yes, right off the bat, creamy, silky, inviting, and then all of a sudden the savoriness comes in. And as the savoriness builds, you're getting greeted with tastes like garlic, some onion, as well as you're getting the, that tastes like some serrano, maybe some jalapeno towards the finish on that flavor. But really, it seems to be serrano is the main forward flavor on that as far as the peppers are concerned. Salivating like crazy. That is tasty. I cannot wait to use this on some tacos and some quesadillas, enchiladas, you name it. This is what I would equate to your typical go-to green verde, salsa that you're gonna find at your local taco shop. And but elevated to the max, packed full of flavor, and I am just absolutely salivating over this. It is phenomenal. But heat wise, let's go with that. Initially, it hits the tongue, it hits the mouth, and really starts to coat the full mouth. So unlike jalapeno that was reviewed on Tuesday, this one here ends up sitting pretty much on the middle part of the mouth and really latches in and just kind of starts to build, starts to smolder towards the end, but then quickly starts to fade away. As that fades away, you're just left with this amazing flavor, great body on this sauce, which is the whole reason why I just am salivating like wild right now. That is a tasty, tasty sauce. That might be my favorite green sauce from Freaky Ferments that they make. The Verde is absolutely on point with flavor. Let's go ahead and put the lid back on this so I can read some ingredients here. I didn't touch on versatility, but versatility-wise, I kind of mentioned some of the dishes that I had in mind. This would not be one that would be geared towards a dessert. It's okay. It's not really intended for that, so no harm, no foul there. Now, the overall burn on this, if you're just starting out, it's going to be definitely a notch higher than jalapeno, but I would say it's still reasonable if you're just starting out, you're brand new to hot sauce. Moderation is key with anything. Find out where you're comfortable, work yourself up each and every time to kind of find where that threshold tipping point is for you and build that comfortability. Now, if you're constantly working on your own personal best, this is going to be a nice mild to medium sauce for you, depending on where your tolerance is at. But absolutely an amazing one here from Freaky Ferments. Ingredients are, look at that, right off the bat, serrano peppers, Anaheim peppers, okay. And then we have jalapeno, then onion, garlic, shallots, salt, apple cider vinegar, and xanthan gum. Man, limited ingredients, done right, very pepper forward, very pepper strong in the overall ingredients list. I mean, this is hands down a great verde for any kind of breakfast or tacos or dinner, you name it, pizzas. Man, this thing's going to be on just about anything that I can think of. I would even see this one actually being incorporated as well for whenever I get ready to mix in for, say, salad dressings that I make here at home. So that would be phenomenal for that. But let's go ahead and read off some scores on this. All right, Verde from Freaky Ferments. We have heat coming in at 2.55, aroma of 3.75, flavor of 4.35, versatility of a 4, a burn of 2.75 for a total swear word rating of 3.48. Another amazing sauce, Freaky Ferments. This is their Verde sauce. Like I said before, I think this out of their lineup is hands down my preferred green sauce from them. Love the burn, love the complexities of the flavors that are really shining through during the different iterations of the peppers and the way that it pairs with the onions, garlics, and shallots. So phenomenal job there. And let's check out the newest addition to their lineup, garlic habanero. All right, let's grab that one there, give it a good shake, and we will get into this one. So garlic habanero from Freaky Ferments. Labeling, love what's going on here. Same, very, cartoon, bright colors, great visual appeal. Love the overall, pairing between the graphics and the lettering and everything. It just blends very nicely. You have some garlic that's just scorching on fire, a habanero pepper that's doing the same, as you can see here on the label. So, beautiful color on this sauce. Nice bright orange. You're seeing some specks of what looks like the garlic in here. And that's the majority of what you're seeing. Consistency wise, I would say it's a little bit thicker than, say, the sauces reviewed on Tuesday, and maybe about the same as the Verde from a consistency standpoint. So definitely looking forward to getting into that. And as well, this does have a perforation on the cellophane, but I'm going to go ahead and use the knife to get that out of here and toss to the side. Here we go. Let's jump on in. No flow restrictor, once again, for all those that are keeping track. Beautiful aroma. Great garlic notes right off the bat. Not overpowering in any way. You do smell it. It is noticeable, but it's not just like beat you over the head noticeable. So here we go. Get a good pour going. Nice flow. Let's get us a good healthy tablespoon, as always. And there we go. Same great aroma. Actually, it probably, as it's out, I'm able to pick up and smell what it smells like, some onion, and really starting to smell just a little bit of that habanero coming forward. So in the bottle, you're mostly just smelling the garlic. The second it gets more surface area, it's on the spoon, you're able to pick up much more notes with your nose as it goes. So here we go. Wow. Oh my gosh. That is beautiful. The way that hits, you are getting a nice creamy note that is coming from that garlic. Also a nice bright and fresh note that's coming from that garlic. You're getting a nice subtle undertone of what tastes like some onion. And then you're greeted with that great habanero body and profile the whole way through. Absolutely phenomenal stuff there. Oh man, so tasty. I can see this being an absolute home run for anything that you would normally use garlic for and you want to ramp up the heat on your dish. This is going to be phenomenal for that. The other thing that stood out immediately in my head is how great this would be. I understand, what I'm about to say is might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but if you are making your own garlic bread at home and you're doing it with like a cheesy garlic on your garlic bread, if you're one of those folks like I am, being able to take that and then just run a nice drizzle of this hot sauce on top of it as a finish, oh man, that is going to be an absolute amazing pairing. It's going to elevate that garlic bread, and it's going to make it very enjoyable the whole time through your meal. If you, talking on the initial heat, if you are new to eating spicy food, this is going to be a bit more like brand new. This is going to be a little bit more of a push for you to be able to enjoy in a larger amount, but moderation as key. And if you're pairing this with foods, you're really going to be able to enjoy the sauce and your food and not really get too burned out. Once again, moderation being the main key and focal point when doing that if you're just starting out. Now, if you are constantly working on your own personal best, you're constantly pushing yourself, this is going to be a nice medium sauce for you. Absolutely phenomenal. I mean, if you are into garlic, if you are into that savory depth and then a beautiful, if you like the flavor profiles as well on the habanero, between the garlic body that's going on in here and that habanero flavor profile being so prevalent, it is an absolute home run if you love those two ingredients. Now, looking at the ways that you can use this and the versatility, now this sauce is not going to be one that I would use towards a dessert by any stretch, but I mean, completely opens the doors for everything else that you would commonly think of: burgers, sandwiches, pizzas, wings, tacos, enchiladas, quesadillas. The list goes on. You could use this beautifully and pair it well. I mean, Italian dishes are going to be phenomenal with this sauce. There's going to be a lot of things that you'll be able to use. I mean, I could even see this thing going great in, say, like a stew, to be able to bring forward that garlic flavor that you're needing and that garlic pop, but also adding some heat throughout that. Marinades are going to be absolutely amazing with this. I'm looking forward to it. Salad dressing, it's a spicy habanero salad dressing. Using that is going to be phenomenal. Burn-wise, where it sits and how it sits. So the initial heat does hit basically the overall mouth, a nice stinging going on. And then as that heat dissipates and goes away and you're left with the burn, and where it sits and how it sits is really going to be parking towards the mid to the back of the mouth. And really, it's just going to be, as to be expected with habanero, you kind of get that little bit of a sting burn instead of an actual, typical burn that you would get from, say, like a jalapeno or any other pepper that would just intensify and then fade out. This is going to be a more pulsating sting that comes forward with this sauce. So, absolutely phenomenal. Let's do this. Let's read off some ingredients real quick for garlic habanero. So, Freaky Ferments garlic habanero. First ingredient is yellow bell pepper. Then we have orange habanero peppers, garlic, white onion, and then salt, apple cider vinegar, and xanthan gum. So, phenomenal sauce here. Very well done. Very nice body to this. Love the way that the garlic is done in this sauce, and really being able to shine forward with the other ingredients as well and not losing anything along the way. But let's read off the scores for garlic habanero. All right, so heat coming in at 3.45, aroma of 3.89, flavor of 4.3, versatility of a 4, a burn of 3.63 for a total swear word rating of 3.85. There we go. Once again, this is garlic habanero from Freaky Ferments. Absolutely amazing sauce. I will have the direct links for those down below, as well as a link to the website so you can see the full lineup. But let's go ahead and kick it on over to the interview. Hey, Jacob, how's it going?
It's going great.
Man, I'm so glad to have you back here. Dive deeper into, everything growing. So, wealth of knowledge, first and foremost. Very talented grower. We've already kind of touched on that last time. Now it's really, I think this would be a great avenue to be able to continue to provide, some overall experience and maybe some alleviate some headaches for some of those that are just starting out growing or been trying to grow and not having the greatest success.
Yeah, yeah, it happens a lot. It's
Yeah.
happened to me many times.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that individuals get out there. They get excited, right? They're passionate about what they're doing, and maybe they bite off a bigger chunk than they intended. So I guess from the standpoint of really being able to get started, where would you start directing someone to kind of get going or to get their footing under them?
But if just going for peppers, find you a good seed source. I can recommend a Blue Million of them that I trust. Um, a good soil. Don't spend a ton of money on grow setups. It's a waste of money. It does great, but I use a simple grow setup. It works for me. It has for almost 15 years to grow peppers. Now we grow a whole garden, but to grow, you know, cheap and very budget friendly, um, that's what people jump into it and they'll buy $4,000 worth of lights, ventilation systems. You don't need it all. I mean, it works. And if you have the extra money, fine. But if you don't, like me, I'm a family of five, so staying cheap is it's something I try to do.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. Now, is something you mentioned as well as like the soil aspect. I guess to kind of peel back the layers to that onion there. Um, you know, e- Whenever you're talking soil, there's many ways to approach this.
Oh
But
yeah.
for those individuals that are trying to be a little bit more budget friendly, cost conscious, what would be? I guess we'll start with like a seed starting mix. How would you get going with that? Where would you start out?
I mean, you can go to like Walmart and get your Jiffy seed mix. I wouldn't buy the big pre-bag stuff. You just want a real loose, airy soil that's not going to pack as soon as you pour water on it. First of all, you don't want to soak your water. You just want it that you want your seed starting mix very damp, not super damp, but just damp. Put your seeds in there. Put your humidity dome on, or if you're using a grow tent, just put it in the grow tent and let it go. But like I said, just a real airy soil, heavy in vermiculite. Just something where you seeds aren't going to struggle to grow through the dirt. Don't go buy heavy duty potting soil. Spend tons of money. First of all, if it's loaded with fertilizer, it's going to burn your plants. You need something when you start your plants. This is where people I think always mess up. They'll go and they'll buy a big bag of seed mix, a big high-dollar bag of seed mix just to start their seeds. When you start your seeds, start it. Once they sprout, get your true leaves on them. You can either move them to the final pot, whichever you're gonna put them in, or like me, I start like either a flat tray of soil and start it like microgreens, just a flat layer of soil, seeds, and then another real thin layer of soil. But then you can take it and like for me, I do that, and then I'll put them in a 72 cell tray until they get decent height, and then I'm going to move them again into a 3.5 inch pot, and that's what I do. That's what I've always done. It works better for me. I could go from the soon as I started in there, but to save room because all my seeds are started in my house. I mean, I have a grow tent, and the rest of everything's in my laundry room. So my house is full of peppers. But we're a pepper family, and that's what happens. I mean, it's but to save room, go from your start your seeds and then maybe move to a 72 cell tray. Like for me, I start, thousands, but for most people, they're going to start one or two trays and then, leave them in there.
Yeah.
Spend your high dollar soil or your money if you're going to make your own soil on the final home to your peppers.
Okay. Now, something that I hear often, and it's commonly mentioned throughout different groups and so on and so forth. The idea of if you're buying from, say, a large box retailer or someone that's keeping that soil outside, you'll often hear individuals that will say, "Hey, the second you get the soil, rip it open, put it in the tub that has well drained, and pour some boiling water all over it to kill off any pests." What's the truth behind that?
I mean, you could do it if you wanted to, but you're killing off all the good stuff when you're doing that too. I never have done it. It's always soil has always worked for me. I've tried thousands of different soils. And I find just a cheap soil, I mean, not a cheap soil, but making your own soil is just the best. Just
Mm.
your simple. That's what I use. I use peat moss, some bone meal, perlite. Then I buy a cheap bag of potting mix to mix with it, and it's a few other things in there, but just as simple. They're all over the internet of simple seed. I mean, growing mixes and
Mhm.
compost. I go compost heavy. I just this year will have local compost, so we're pretty excited about that.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Yeah, and I mean
Yes.
that's a whole nother avenue to the compost side of things. I want to touch on that one in a second. The soil, though, that you're starting out in, you're getting everything going. Now, is there any purpose to end up more or less repurposing that same soil mix and just dumping it into, if you're building your own. And I guess also another caveat, or another question to that, I should say, is, for those individuals that are growing maybe not in a pot, but they're growing in the ground, um, I guess we'll navigate down those waters here in a second. But as far as the overall starting mix, obviously that's pretty easily obtainable through the means of whether it be a big box store or what have you, whatever you can get your hands on. But for those individuals, if they're going into the ground, would they still utilize that starting mix around the seedling?
I mean, yeah, you could around the seedling, but once it goes in the ground, I plant. I mean, most people see my grow. Half of my grows in the ground,
Mhm.
half of my grows in pots. I use fabric pots, and in the ground just goes some compost, some all-purpose fertilizer, just a neutral, 10 10 10 or 12 12 12. That's what I use. That's works for me. Not everybody does it that way. But in my bag soil, you're talking about reusing soil. My bag soil, I dump out at the end of every year. I'll take all my pots and I'll dump them out, um, pull the roots out, sift it real good, and then I'll just amend the soil. So I put fertilizer back into the soil and then add my new mix of soil into it, mix all that back up, and put it in my pots. Some people will go against that. That's what works for me. My plants are 5 6 feet tall. They produce heavy, heavy. I have a lot better luck out of pots. I always have. For some reason, I'm gonna go real heavy in the pots this year and kind of cut back on some of the in ground. That's what works for me right now.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. And it is definitely one of those things. It's a trial and error, and really finding out what thrives in your area, and best methods, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah,
So.
I can say one more thing about that, because a lot of people, I'm in Middle Tennessee. We have great soil. Where I live at's on old farmland. I don't have a big, huge lot. I don't have a big farm like people think I do. I live right in the city. I mean, it's my backyard is all peppers and garden, and there's a pool crammed in between all that and a greenhouse. But I mean, that's what it is. And but every year you plant your soil, you're ripping everything out of it. So you got to amend your soil every single year. I've skipped it before and paid for it dearly. If you've ripped everything out of your soil, so if you grow peppers in the same spot, they'll say rotate your garden.
Mhm.
I don't rotate. I rotate our vegetables, but our peppers are in the same spot every year. So I go and amend it heavy, go in with a compost, go in with some fertilizer, um, till it all in, and then do it again, and then go from there.
Okay. Now, to touch on the compost side of things, it's very common, obviously, to find cow manure, essentially, right? But as far as the magnitude of different composts that you can kind of go through, is there one that has kind of performed better for you, and has there been one that just it seems to be worth less than the word that it is spoken about it?
Cow manure doesn't do great for me. Horse manure doesn't do great for me because it's loaded in grass seed. So if you plant it and you're say planting in the ground and you don't have any kind of ground cover, we use ground cover. But if you don't have any kind of ground cover, and even if you do have ground cover around your plants, you're just going to have weeds and stuff everywhere, and it will choke out a plant. We use mushroom compost and humus. That's what
Okay.
I've used. That's what I've been using it for a few years. I like it. Horse manure and cow manure will work, but it's also going to be loaded in grass seed and everything else.
Okay.
That's,
Okay.
that's just what works for me.
Yeah, and I know one of the other more commonly mentioned along the same lines is the leaf mold
Yeah,
compost. What has been your experience with that? Have you used it?
never used it.
Never. Okay. Yeah, I know it's pretty big. At least mentioned quite often here in Texas. One of the main facilities that's known for producing a very top notch product is in Houston. So we
Yeah,
see it quite often here. I've used it a few times, but I will be honest, I incorporated so many new things all at once. I had no clue what the benefit was coming from.
yeah.
But yeah, that's where you get a little bit too eager, and you just start, you know. Oh, this sounds great, and research on that shows good, and this, that, and then so,
Yeah, and then
okay.
you'll have a bunch of stuff in your garden and you don't know what worked.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I had, and then I even tried one year. I tried to do certain rows of the in ground. I gave like, say, column A got these amendments, and column B got those same amendments plus one more, and then I kept kind of shuffling. But realistically, the way that those plants were growing, by the time I pulled it up, it's like they were just feeding off each other's nutrients, and so it became a little bit harder to define. I did find out which ones weren't working so great for me here in Texas,
Yeah.
but that also has a lot to do with the heavy clay content in our soil. So yeah,
Yeah, because
it,
not everybody's going to be alike. Every region, every state has different soil, and that's where people mix up. They'll be like, "Well, he did this in Chicago, and this person did this in Florida, and this person did it in Texas, this person did it in Tennessee," and it's just it doesn't work the same. Our climates are all different.
yep,
We have, I mean, like for instance, it's 28 more. I think it was 28 degrees here this morning. It's 64 right now. I mean, it's Tennessee weather is bananas, especially during grow season. It could be 100 degrees, and then we don't get real low at night, but it's the humidity here is wild. That's what makes our pepper plants super flourish.
yeah. It gives it that with all that humidity, it gives it almost that tropical vibe going on. Definitely on those hotter days.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Um, so yeah, no, that's got to be extremely beneficial for the plants in that sense. So very much so, I can see where that pairs out well. Along the same lines of compost, using things like compost teas and so on and so forth. Is that something that you tend to gravitate around, and how often?
Heavy, heavy believer in compost tea. As a matter of fact, I have a bag of it right over here of some instant compost tea called Recharge. I used it last year. Works great. I've usually gone with extreme teas, like from Extreme Gardener. I've
Hmm.
always liked those. You just put them in a 5 gallon bucket with a bubbler and let it brew for about 28 to 48 hours, then just flush or flood the plants with them. That's what I do. I'll mix it with some water and flood the plants with it. I love compost tea. It's always worked great for me. I use fish fertilizers and compost tea, and that's all I use.
Okay. Now, this is me speaking from my own experience, and possibly not doing things the correct way. But now, whenever you're making your compost teas, do you add that fish fertilizer in the compost as it's brewing?
I don't. No, I
Okay.
just let it go straight compost tea, and then I'll rotate the fertilizers out.
Okay.
It's something
I
that's not gonna because I've burned plants, trial and error through the years. You go heavy with a fertilizer, and I've burned the plants, but I don't. No, I just go straight fish fertilizer and compost teas.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I asked that because I've made the unfortunate mistake that landed me in the doghouse with the wife quite a few times of, making my batch of compost tea and trying to really make it a heavy concentrate so I could dilute it out and get more uses.
Yeah,
And I just went hard with the fish fertilizer as well in the brew. And it was hot outside, and I
it
decided
stinks.
to make it inside the garage that was shut, and oh man, it was a bad time. The whole garage stunk for like 2 months straight. So yeah, never again. I've towards the end of that, after that one time, I was like, nah. So then
Yeah,
I
that's always an
started.
outdoor thing.
Yep, I started just adding the fish fertilizer in at the very end as I'm starting to mix up the concentrate. So okay, okay, very nice. Now you know, talking through. Now we've talked kind of starting plants, the compost, the really feeding the overall plants. I guess on that note as well for feeding, because one thing that commonly comes up, people have tons of questions on feeding every day, or are you a believer in a kind of a cycle of water, feed, fish fertilizer? Yeah, like I've heard many different things of different iterations. Do you have a certain schedule that you kind of try to go by, or?
Not really. It depending on how much rain we have. That's a big one. Is we have a bunch of rain, I'm not gonna go out there and feed a bunch as soon as we had a bunch of rain because it's already soaked.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if we have like a dry spell and I need to water my plants, I'll feed then. I try to feed at least once a week. and
Okay.
sometimes twice a week. Because I'm not using a heavy concentrate. I'm not just dumping. I know a lot of people use the fish hydrolysate. They go, every feeding. Some of them will go and water with that. I mean, I have gone pretty heavy with the fish fertilizer. I've never had any problem. It always super produces. It works. You're not really going to burn your plants with fish fertilizers. I mean, I guess you could stall them maybe, but I've never had a problem.
Yeah, and something else that I've used, thinking about that, because I was trying to figure out what that other amendment that I was using in the past. But obviously, you have the root mycorrhiza stuff that you can sprinkle in and all that stuff to really help jumpstart, and also to boost during transplants
It
from
works.
shock and all that.
Yeah,
Um,
we have some. I mean, that's something I didn't say. Yeah, we've used it. I used same thing at Stream Gardener grow packs. They got all
yep.
that stuff in it. I believe in a lot of their stuff. We've used it for, I don't know, probably 10, 12 years since I've used them way back. I know some people don't know, but I used to be new leaf chili pepper. If some people don't know
Okay.
that, before I was started Deathridge's peppers with a
Yep.
buddy, and we use them religiously. Just throw a bag of that down in the hole. It's expensive,
Oh
and that's
yeah.
not really, it's not budget friendly, but I have used it many times and it works.
Oh yeah.
You
It's
can, matter of fact, you can get a sampler pack from them for nothing really. It's real cheap.
Yeah, I know. I've tried because I've heard different things and wanted to experiment and try different things to really help boost the start, right? So diluting that just a small amount in the water to jumpstart those once the seedlings start to come up to really get those roots going and those true leaves showing. And I've seen some good results, and then I've seen some times where it's just a bit too much, and it ends up burning and choking out the plant.
Oh yeah.
Um, and it is a finicky balance to it all. Another one, another amendment that I used to see often mentioned is like might be misspeaking on it, but sea kelp. I know it comes in like a fine powder. You can oftentimes
Yeah.
find it as a liquid as
I've got it
well,
in my greenhouse.
and it seems to work phenomenally for me here in Texas. Why would someone go down that route of using sea kelp, and at what point would you tend to gravitate to using that into the routine?
I use it. We have seaweed extract and kelp, I think, out there in the greenhouse, and I use it when my plants are in blooming. So, like when
Mm,
my plants are in producing mode, then I'll feed it with that when it's when the leaves are wilted down and it just looks hungry or
yep.
thirsty, and I'll pump in that, and I've always liked it. It's always worked for me. I think what we use is called Sea Grow.
Okay. Okay.
So
The Now, as far as amendments that go in the ground for the initial start, you're obviously, I guess, commonly, I feel like you're hearing that if you're filling up the initial start hole before you end up planting, your typical average time that those amendments are kind of be useful without kind of anything else, if you will, is kind of about that 2 month gap. Is that about what you're
yeah,
experiencing as well?
yeah, exactly. It's
Okay.
right on the money.
And then from there, you're just continuing to monitor the plants, figure out what kind of signs of distress they might be telling you or what they're lacking, and just kind of
Yeah.
catering towards that as you go.
Yeah, you'll have your leaf curl or your discoloration of your plants. It's just something like it's not taught. You just learn it
Yep.
from the years and years of growing. I've had a lot of years where my plants did absolutely terrible, and it's just where I didn't them in the soil, or I'm overfeeding, or I'm underfeeding. And for somebody that's just starting out, that's really getting into it, you don't need all these amendments. You can go throw your pepper plants in the ground with a little bit of fertilizer, just some straight across the edge. Your NPK is, 10, 10, 10, or real low. I mean, whatever. As long as it's an even amount, you're not just flooding it with nitrogen, because you're going to get a bunch of growth and you're going to get four peppers. It
Yep.
don't work. I mean, it's like I say, I use the amendments because I've got them over the years. People send me a lot of stuff. Marketplace is your very good friend on Facebook. You can find tons of deals on there. As a matter of fact, all my seed trays and everything I had, I got for free off Marketplace.
Oh, nice. I didn't even think
So
about that. That's a good one right there. A nice tip for everyone that's looking for whether you're trying to expand your grow or just starting out. Definitely a great way. And I didn't even think about that because I did. What was that in? Gosh, what was that? 2018 or 2019? Either way, 2018 or 2019 grow. I went with um, over 50 or 60 7-gallon fabric pots. Now they weren't the smart pots, the higher quality, more whatever, all
I
that
I
stuff
use
that
the cheap
they
ones.
yeah that they talk about, but they worked great. And then I ended up stepping away from that because it was just one of those. I had the soil. I had a giant willow tree removed from that area so I could grow there, and man, that tree was huge. It ended up spanning like half of my house, so I was so worried that one day it was just gonna fall and crush my house.
Absolutely.
Um,
Especially
so
good Texas weather.
yeah, yeah. It's like every time a tornado came through, I was just sitting there, praying that it just holds strong and doesn't come down.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. We're in Tennessee. I feel that 100%.
yeah.
Especially here in the next month when we get ready to start loading the greenhouse up, and we have, it's tornado season, and it's a nightmare because the storms are coming. There's not a lot you can do about it.
Oh yeah. In that, I mean, not to completely jump off on a side tangent, but to that point, I was just man. Whenever I was thinking through, once again, it was like 2018, anywhere from 2018 to 2020 was whenever I was really heavily planning and mapping out and trying to re-engineer how I'm gonna plot out this part for the backyard, and okay, then this section I'm gonna do that, and this section. At one point I was like, I'm gonna get me a greenhouse or at least something that I can drop over to keep the plants going year round in at least one section.
It's a lot
And
of work.
oh man, it is. And then with the tornadoes and the high winds, and I just happen to live in such a the way that everything else goes through because it's a giant open park right by me. The
Yeah.
way the wind channels through, we get the brunt of like the hardest part, it
Ooh,
seems.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, so I put some temporary stuff out there, really anchored it down, took T post and nailed them down pretty deep, and nah, it didn't hold on. I even put a bolt through the PVC pipe through the T post. It just ripped that sucker. So I don't understand it. It just blows my mind. I guess is it a sheer strike of luck that a lot of these greenhouses end up retaining or
Yeah, they don't, because I know many people that have just the cheap, you say, TikTok greenhouses, or
mm-hmm.
the cheap plastic hoop houses. Yeah, they don't hold up. They don't hold up to snow. They don't hold up to rain. That's something else I'll tell you that people jump into is the greenhouse. I'm going to grow a bunch of peppers. I got to have a greenhouse. No, you don't. You can get you a little greenhouse if you want to, but if you grow your plants inside, you're just going to move them outside and harden them off and then put them in the ground. That's where people mess up too. They don't harden them off. That means you get used to the sun, an hour a day, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, and work your way until your plants are out there all day and they're not burning. You'll see the leaves turn white. But my
Yeah.
greenhouse is another budget friendly thing. Is it is a I've got it, I think, on my social media, but it's all it is a portable garage. I got free off Marketplace. It didn't have a cover. I come home and put 2x4 frame around it. The 2x4s also came from Marketplace for free. The doors on it from Marketplace free. Just get on Marketplace and search for your stuff, and I just wrap that thing in greenhouse plastic, and it's been out there since 2021. And that's the next thing when people jump in the greenhouse, they don't realize how you heat a greenhouse, because when
Mm-hmm.
you're in colder climates and it's like for instance, here it gets 8 degrees, you've got to heat that greenhouse. And if your greenhouse is a good ways from your house, you can't just use an extension cord and plug it up. It's going to burn up an extension cord.
Yep.
So you got to heat it with either wood or gas. And heat with wood, just remember you got to load that stove. every 4 or 5 hours. So when I go live or something, or I'm out in the greenhouse, it's 11 o'clock. I'm stuffing the stove. I still get up and go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Man, that's some commitment right there. That's that pepper life. You
Yeah,
know,
that's the pepper life.
it sounds like Facebook Marketplace might be a nice hack right there, just to be able to acquire and find things. But it
Swear
does
by it.
sound like you're saying there's going to be some searching. There's going to be some days that you don't find exactly what you're looking for, but sticking to it and keeping on that hunt, and you'll find it.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, for instance, I was on Marketplace this year. I found a local huge nursery that was going out of business. They told me to go get what I wanted. And I got enough ground cover to cover my entire backyard. I got shade cloths, seed trays, all my 3.5 inch pots free.
man, man,
I
that's
get lucky
nice.
with
Yeah, yeah. Sounds like you're the master of the marketplace right
it.
now.
Marketplace, yeah. I swear by it. It works.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Well, all right. So one thing you touched on it a second ago as well. Hardening plants off. It's one that is literally and figuratively burned to me. There we go. Pun
Very well. Me
intended.
too.
And it is a finicky thing as you're learning and as you're really starting to figure out what these plants need. And then the second you start to see them like wilt, you're like, oh no, 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 no. And then you like rush them off to the side real quick. And then you're trying to like flood them with, oftentimes this is the normal thought process. Oh, let me flood them with water because they need water. And then now they're in soggy soil. Now they're hot and they're soggy soil and they're hating life. And then, oh, by the way, because you flushed them with water, now a lot of the nutrients are also
It's gone.
depleting. And then you just get in this vicious cycle, and then you end up killing your plants. So,
Exactly.
for the individuals that are going to, I would say the majority of everyone that's listening and watching are going to be, working 9 to 5, that it requires them to not be physically at home to be able to kind of rotate in and out. So, what would you, or I guess, what would be the best recommended way to go about hardening your plants if you're not going to be able to solely keep an eye on them for that kind of a duration? Are you able to skip
So
days?
skip days ain't really gonna work. How we did it for years before I had a greenhouse, where it's got UV plastic, and I just take them from outside, put them in the greenhouse. They don't burn in the greenhouse, but they get enough sunlight that it hardens them off in the greenhouse. But how we used to do it for a greenhouse was, I have a big tree in my backyard, and I would just watch the way the shadow traveled across the tree. And so each day I would move the plants around the tree, and that's how it worked. Or you can just put them out in the sun. I mean, that's, you know, hours at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I've never skipped days. I mean, I guess maybe you could. I'm not gonna say you can or you can't because I don't know, but I never have.
Okay.
So
Well, and
hardening off though, like you say, hardening off though is the first year, like you said, you got burned. When I got into the pepper thing, I don't know what year that was, years ago. Um, I did the same thing. I got my first ghost pepper plant. And I grew it the first year. I loved what it did, and everybody wanted them. So I was like, the next year I sourced plants instead of seeds. And so I got all my plants. I got like 20 plants. And I went out there and put them in the garden. Went to work the next morning, come home, and there was no leaves whatsoever because they just sit there and cooked in the sun all day. Seller's kind of fault because he didn't tell me they weren't hardened off. So I didn't know. And so he brought them straight from indoors, and I put them straight
mm,
outdoors. And it cooked the plants. And then
yeah,
I've learned since then.
yeah,
What works for me is, like I say, a big shade tree and let the sun work around the shade tree, and then move them over where they get more sun during certain times. And that's what worked. I put them under a trampoline before, where they're getting just enough
yep,
light through the trampoline to not burn them, and it kind of gets them used to sun at the same time. I have
yep.
done that. That works. Just simple little hacks. I mean, there's tons of videos where they're real specific about it, but that's what works for me.
Yeah, I've to that same note for a more MacGyver type of a scenario there. I've seen people use like basically sheets that they're not going to put on their bed anymore, and they tie them off to stakes or however they want to tether them, and then prop it as if it's a shade cloth. And essentially, what it does is kind of like how you're saying with the tree. You naturally have a period of time that you're getting sun
Right.
directly on them, and then you have a period of time where you're not really getting much sun on them. I've seen that, and I've also seen people buy, which is actually still pretty affordable too, at most of these box stores. Now the problem is trying to find that small window that you can get it from them, but just the run of the mill, whatever you can find, shade cloth itself, they sell it typically by the roll, and most of these box stores you can just say I want X amount of feet and just cut it, and they'll do it up and just put your little bungee cords and hold it true. Um, that's another easy way to not have to
Yeah.
really stress about things.
Yeah, because people will. I've seen it where they're moving 600 plants outside every for 2 hours a day, and that's a pain in the butt, especially if you work a full time job. I do,
Yep.
and I don't have time to sit out there and babysit the plants.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that was my point of a greenhouse. That's when I don't move anything to the greenhouse until it's up above 40 at night. So once it starts staying a steady above 40 at night, which is usually for us, it's usually the end of March, beginning of April. We have had snow in April. I just watch the weather, focus on it real hard, and then once I see every night's below 40 or above 40, I move the plants to the greenhouse and I don't heat it during that time. It's got exhaust fans on it, so when it gets too hot in there, it'll suck the air out of it.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean that's a whole nother thing to think about too. Being able to make sure, regardless of like, I guess really keeping in mind, I should say, of where you're at and the weather and the directness of the sun, the humidity, all these things playing into effect because in an enclosed thing, if you have an enclosed greenhouse that doesn't get natural airflow or no way of opening up windows or anything like that,
Yeah,
you might be potentially throwing your plants into a giant oven and have no
exactly.
clue. So,
I've seen it happen many times where people just they get them a greenhouse, they're all excited because they want to get their plants in there and get them ready. There's not a fan in there. You need a fan for air circulation. You need some kind of something if it gets hot. Like all mine is two exhaust fans are about that big around, or one on each end, and a cheap heat mat thermostat. That's all I use, and it tells it. I actually just hang it in the air, so it's not super accurate. But if it gets above 92 degrees in there, they kick on until it cools back down, and then they'll close. It's another marketplace score.
well, hey, another easy win there. But I mean, it's a great way to be able, as you were saying, like a solution, a more simplistic solution to what could be a huge bill if you're trying to find a very
Yeah.
specific part. So yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a great avenue to go down for that. And I guess also to talk about like whenever you're viewing your pepper plants as they're getting ready to go, are you one that likes to stake them early on? Do you stake them at any point? And kind of how did you go about that, or what might be the most budget friendly route to go for staking plants?
I just use once again marketplace, but no, I use bamboo is I found this to be the cheapest. Bamboo here is readily available. Most people will start bamboo here. I don't know what it's like in Texas, and bamboo takes over. So then they've got too much
Mm-hmm.
of it. So you just go cut it down and get as much as you want. Bamboo's always worked for me. I just get a big thick rod of bamboo and put down in there. Or, I put cages around them. I do have some of the plants that have cages around, but bamboo is my go-to. I
Okay.
just get some bamboo, or if you can find cheap, like some people are closer to it, but like tobacco sticks,
Mm-hmm.
like what people use on tobacco farms, state tobacco. A lot of times you can buy a huge bundle of that for 30, $40, depending on where you're at. Some people have it, some people don't, but
Yeah.
you can buy that here. Just use get on, like say, any of the for sale sites, and they're always on there.
Yeah. The one thing I will say and stress just from my own personal experience, yes, I am 100% with you on the bamboo. I've used that successfully, but my very first year, I was like, I gotta get bamboo. I gotta get bamboo, and I just jumped on. I believe I looked on Amazon, and I was like, typed
Yes.
in bamboo. Next thing you know, I get in the mail these tiny green bamboo
Toothpicks.
toothpicks. Yeah, it's like they mailed me extra long chopsticks or something. I was just like
Right.
kind of confused.
And they're done it.
And man, those things are worthless. The second the wind comes through, it snaps it. It ends up breaking and cutting the plant, and it's a mess. So
It
I would
is.
highly recommend not touching those green bamboo sticks that are, ultimately, by the time they got there, I don't even remember what the description said, but the diameter on them was like less than, it was probably half an inch, really,
Yeah.
at best. So,
Yeah.
the,
And that's not going to hold up. That's not going to hold up a healthy pepper plant.
no, no, not at all. I mean, it struggles even as it's starting to grow to really hold it up. The second you get your first real true Y starting off on that plant and a nice gust of wind comes through, that little
It's snap.
bamboo stick has no clue what to do. So, crazy stuff. Now I was going to not try to talk about this, but I feel like it would be too much of a missed opportunity to not talk about it during this stage of the growth and talking through startings and all that stuff. So during the time of starting your seeds, all the way to where we are now, where you have plants in the ground and you're really starting to see some full on growth. During that process, you had mentioned it too. You're starting quite a few seeds, and if you are starting out, you should start more than you intend because you're not always guaranteed that that seed is going to be, viable and producing a healthy plant. So a natural
Exactly.
culling has to happen. How do you go about your personal selection on culling out your plants, and do you just stop after the initial selection, or do you continue to cut them as they go?
I have a hard time throwing away plants. A really hard time. So what I do is I start my trays and I start 5 seeds per tray, shaped like a five on a dice. That's how I start my seeds. I've done it for a while. I know, a matter of fact, I've talked to a few other people that do exactly the same way. And once they sprout, because you're going to have some that are just not going to sprout, it's just going to happen. It's natural. Then I'll take them and if the little, I'm just transplanting a plant that's probably that big,
Hmm.
and you can look at a healthy, if you know how to look at it, just look at a plant that's got 4 leaves on it, or at least two solid true leaves. If you only got one leaf, throw it in the trash. If you've got a stem that's starting to weaken on the end, or it looks like something's eating at it, throw it in the trash. But usually, yeah, I don't hardly throw away plants. If I've got the trays in the room, I'll fill them up. I'll fill them up, and then as the plants get bigger, I do, like, if they're 4 inches and they're just not growing like the one next to it, and it's the same as that plant, it's going in the trash, or I'm gonna give it to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And to that point, I guess to build on to the next step, as your say, all right, so your plants are, we'll go off that last one. You got one that is actually growing at the rate that you would expect versus the one that's kind of dwarfed. You kind of move that one on out. The same process could be a few steps later, or a few months later, or what have you. But ultimately, you'll start to see, oftentimes, definitely as a new grower, maybe some kind of pest is really attacking or a fungal is taking on and it's really damaging and hurting the plant. Are you one to just say get it out as quick as it can, or do you try to nurse it back to health? How do you go about your choice on that?
If it's a seedling and it's a healthy looking seedling, I will nurse it back. Try everything. I've tried just about everything on the market you can try. I've never found a fantastic natural organic pesticide. Something it. I mean, they work, but they don't work great. I have found beneficial insects work great here. I don't. A lot of people, they don't. I can release them here, and it's like, if you're buying ladybugs, don't buy fed ladybugs. See if you can find some that are like unfed ladybugs. You can find them, search for them. That's very beneficial to the aphids, and I'll release them sometimes in the greenhouse. Praying mantises, if you live out in the sticks, because you don't want your neighbors getting attacked by praying mantises. But yeah, like, I will nurse them back to health. If it's too far gone, no, it's going in the trash too. And
Yeah.
I will, because like I say, I grow way too many plants. I do it every year. I don't plant that many that I grow. Most of them either is for local people, or I'll send some to some people. I just, I don't know. I grow too many, and then I'll pick my very best looking plants and set them to the side, and that's what I grow.
Yep.
That up my entire grow. If I grow say 1,000 plants and I want to plant 500, those other 500 either go on the side and they're going to get sold locally, or they're going to get gave away or send them to somebody. I don't need them. But then again, I don't really like throwing them away.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get it. The overall pepper addiction is not an addiction. It's a love. It's a passion. It's a passion.
Yeah.
Everyone. um, uh, but yeah, so for the beneficial insects, I'm a huge proponent in that. I had one time purchase of what was supposed to be ladybugs that burned me, but the other times I've tried praying mantis. They work phenomenal here. And it's always fun because I'll see them on, different
Oh yeah,
plants.
they're
Each
neat.
year, there's like a new egg, and I'm like, oh, hey, like they're still around. That's been 3 years ago now, or whatever. And
Yeah,
they just keep staying around. But at the same time, I've also tried the lace wings.
they
They
were.
work great, and then as well as the ladybugs. And very foolish. So I'll go ahead and warn everyone that maybe just starting out or just experiencing what it's like to have beneficial insects. Do not release them all at the same time. It does not work out well because then they all start basically fighting each other too. And the praying mantis will win. So,
Yeah, they'll eat everything.
yeah. So, and also making sure that you're getting ladybugs from a quality source, I cannot stress
Absolutely.
anymore because one massive shipment of like 13, I think I bought 13,000 is what it was
Oh
supposed
yeah.
to be, ladybugs. And they became those, I don't remember is it Japanese beetle or whatever? There's something
Oh
else what
yeah.
they call them. So it's the biting, infesting one. And I was like, dude, I'm still out in the garden. I'll turn over because I do a lot of uh, wood mulch covering, the
Yeah.
radial wood mulch chips, and I will move it aside to check the soil, and I will still find some of them down there. I'm like, what is this? So be
Oh
cautious of
yeah.
where you get those.
Absolutely. Yeah, but I believe in it hardcore. Like I say, I don't use a lot of sprays. I mean, I can recommend organic or I can recommend non-organic stuff that works. I try not to use a lot of sprays. Most of my plants, for the most part, once they're outdoors, they're either in a pot or they're in the ground, and we have the heat we do. I don't have a problem with bugs. I know people get infested with aphids, and I've never had that problem with my plants in the ground. Um, they just don't get them. Now, my potted plants, I have gotten them before, especially when you take a potted plant that's been outdoors and move it indoors. You're always going to, I don't care what you say, you're always going to get some kind of bug. It's either going to come out of the soil or it's just going to be in the plant, and your plants are covered. Every year when I move plants in the greenhouse, I'll have a full blown infestation of aphids because I move plants from our last free, or well, right before our freeze. I'll move plants in the greenhouse and keep them in there till usually like January, just to kind of play with. I'm not really doing anything with them, but when I move them in there, I know that I'm going to have to spray because I'm going to get aphids. It's just part of it.
Yep. Yep. No, definitely. And I definitely want to I want to continue on with this conversation. At the same time, I do have another thing I want to pull up here. This is using the power of Google. That I know a lot of the folks that are going to be listening, watching, and just really trying to figure out for themselves, they're going to be experiencing this as well. They're going to quickly go to their known friend, the internet, for all the solutions. So I just typed in real quick here top 10 things for new gardeners or new gardening. And so, I'm going to run through this. Obviously, Google over delivered and gave me more than 10. We kind of touched on some of these. So we'll check off some of those real quick. Building up healthy soil, obviously, that's a yes. Controlling those weeds. We talked about how it can easily choke out plants, but is that 100% kind of where you're leaning as well? That weed control is a definite must.
Yeah, and what we use, and I've luckily been able to find it for cheap, is we use woven ground cover. It's what they use commercially. It's what they use in greenhouses. It's kind of becoming popular now, but you burn a hole in it. You put either your drip line in, or you can, if you're going to water it, it's water soluble, so water will go through it. It's kind of expensive. It's like say it's not really budget friendly. If you're doing a small garden, it's great, but that cuts out all my weeding. I don't have to go out there and weed anything.
That's
So
nice.
yeah, because weeds will definitely choke out your plants,
Yeah.
and you'll be out there every day pulling weeds and cutting down weeds.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know it's been a battle that I've chased in the past, and I ended up getting into the wood chips to really heavy amount of wood chips in order to really suppress and minimize. So, and that's a whole nother battle. I mean, I think the last time through I shoveled out is either 23 or 27 yards of mulch in the garden and
Yeah, that's a lot.
in the raised beds and all this. Man, it was a beat down. Did that all in a day, and then basically one full day, and then finished it up in the morning whenever I could see again.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's work,
yeah.
dedication.
I'm going to skip these next two because they're kind of irrelevant for what we're talking here. But then it has, considering raised beds. I mean, I don't think that it's a bad avenue. It's not maybe necessarily the most budget friendly unless you're, resourcing these from other means. But
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on them?
I've never used them, so I can't really comment on them. I use like fabric grow bags, and then I use regular just in ground soil. That's what I've really become a lover of the grow bags. That's just I use 7 and 10, and I think I have some 13s.
Oh,
And
nice.
I really like the fabric grow bags. People say you don't reuse them. I reuse them. Don't have any problems. If they tear, I throw them away.
Yep.
That's a marketplace. It's an easy marketplace find. I know a lot of people buy them from there.
Yep.
Um, but cheap. They don't take a lot to fill them. The only catch with fabric bags is they dry quick.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have, you're in Texas or you're in Tennessee or Arkansas, Alabama, any of the southern states that get brutally hot, and they're going to be in full direct sun 24/7. If you don't have a drip line on something, they're going to dry out.
Yep. Absolutely. The next one, not necessarily completely relevant, but fitting of the current discussion. So I'll go ahead and mention it now. But bell peppers, I think that's a pretty easy one to start out with and have some fun with. I wouldn't plant them next to other peppers that I was growing just because I know they're a lot more prone and susceptible to fungal issues and pests and so on. So maybe
Absolutely.
off to the side, a little bit of distance from plants that you might cherish. Um, Amend your soil. We talked on that one. Consistent
Yes.
watering. That's also one of those things that a lot of people struggle with, trying to figure out what is the proper amount and what's not too much, what's not too little. I know they sell those gauges that you can kind of drop in the ground, give you a good idea of the sunlight, of the moisture in the ground. Do you use those? Have you used those? Would you recommend someone to try those?
I've never used them, so I can't say yes or no.
Okay, fair enough. Adding mulch, we talked on that. That's definitely beneficial. It not only keeps out unwanted plants and weeds and grass and all that other stuff, but it also helps retain water. Is there a preferred mulch that you like to go use, or?
I don't really use it.
Okay, okay.
I've
The
never really used mulch. Like I say, my soil is just soil, and I till it up, amend it a little bit, but I don't put any kind of like big additives. I will add compost to the soil, but I don't add a bunch of anything else. We
Okay,
used to dump our old pots in there, like before we started using the same soil over. Because I use the same soil for about, I don't know, 2 years, and just 2, 3 years until it just doesn't look good anymore, and then we'll just dump it in the garden, till it in, and repurpose it again.
nice. Okay, all right. Hey, don't fix something that ain't broken. So,
Right.
I definitely agree there.
I know
Um,
that I know there's a couple big growers that use the chips and the mulch and love it. I know Gary Moncon uses it and loves it, and it works fantastic for him. If anybody's ever seen his plants, they're huge and beautiful.
Oh yeah, it's a very magical time whenever he shares videos and photos of there. All I just want to do is lay down under that, that picture. I
Or
just want to lay
trees.
down there, between those two mounds of rows of pepper plants and just
Yeah.
bask. All right. So then they have gloves and watering wand. Those are kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Choosing the right plants, yeah, I would definitely. It's smart to put pencil to paper and figure out what you want to grow, where you plan on growing it, and plotting things out because spacing does
Absolutely.
matter. There is ways that you can layer, but still you have to think that part through.
Yeah, I'm in a bunch of Facebook groups right now, and you see these people that just go heavy and just start spending hundreds of dollars on seeds because they want to grow everything, and they've got all their pepper seeds started, and they've got 700 plants, and they gets time to grow, and they're going, "Oh, what am I going to do with all these plants? I ain't got room for it." Just don't overdo it.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Check irrigation. Yep, we kind of talked on that one. Feeding the plants regularly. We talked about that one. The rest of these are kind of, whether that be tools or what have you. Controlling bugs and disease, we talked on that one, but also making compost. We talked about, getting compost and so on and so forth, but
Yeah.
it is a beneficial thing to learn if that's something, an avenue you wanted to go down and save yourself some money. You can, over
Oh yeah.
time, continue to build up compost and cut back bills for future years.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think that's a bad list. I think there's some in there that are kind of like
Yeah.
leading you in a direction that you weren't
Oh
necessarily
yeah.
asking for. But nice job there, Google. So,
Yeah.
but okay, okay. Well, somebody may check in on the podcast for the very first time. They're trying to figure things out. Obviously, they've learned a lot here. I'm going to be teeing up the latter half of this discussion, plus a little bit more dive into, other avenues in growing and what to expect and so on. But if they're eager to learn more or they have questions that we didn't cover here, I know that you have a phenomenal pepper group. How can they, get in contact in either whether your group or is there a group that you would recommend them to kind of just go in and find somebody that, may have that knowledge that they're looking for?
Grower groups. I mean, I run for the love of everything spicy. There's me and a group of us that run it. It's just a calm, drama-free group. There's a lot of good growers in there that a lot of good information. I could do ask. You can go to Primo Army's group. That's another one. That's a good one. Um, Other one that I don't really recommend any other grower groups because I don't really. I mean, there's a bunch of them out there. You find Pepper Freaks or Pepper. I think Pepper Growing is another one. It just most of them are good, clean groups
Yep.
for the most part. You're going to have some people in these groups that are they have big egos and they think they're the best in the world, which they may be, but I mean, just that's everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, everyone puts their
Otherwise, you
pants
can,
on one leg at a time. So,
yeah, you can. But I mean, I'm on any. You just look up my last name. I'm on every single social media out there, and I'll write you back. I'm on it a lot, so I write you back.
all right, all right. Well, obviously you have a very unique experience of being able to have a history, a family history of growing and gardening, and really being able to be amazing at what you do. But for some of those individuals
Thank
that
you.
may be curious about uh, expanding on their knowledge and really soaking up and learning, whether it be new methods or things that they can improve on, do you have a general area as far as like, is there some kind of literature or video series or anything that you kind of tend to think of as a potential initial guide for some folks?
YouTube. YouTube's your friend on growing. You'll see people, and they will give you most of the time. They will see what they started with, and they'll show you what they finished with. And you can see if they've struggled, and you can see if they've not. So you can kind of look for your own self and see what works and what don't. YouTube is your friend. I mean, YouTube, and I mean, there's some stuff on your TikToks and stuff, but YouTube is what I go to. You can go to Google, but you're going to get so many different answers,
Yep.
and most of the time, it's not going to work for super hot peppers.
Yep.
Or if I mean, it works for regular garden vegetables, but but not for super hot peppers. They're finicky plants, but they're not hard to grow. People way overthink it.
Okay. Now, what the I was gonna mention this earlier and I forgot, and then I said the literature, and then it popped in my head. Farmer's Almanac. Live by it or not for somebody that's just
Look at
starting
it.
out?
Look at it. Don't live by it. You can
Okay.
look at it and then start watching your weather where you live at. Because I have had it say that it's going to, it's going to be 80 degrees for the next 3 weeks, and I got everything in the greenhouse ready to go. And the beginning of that third week, I get 30 degrees outside, and I'm moving plants back inside all over my kitchen for a night to let the cold front pass.
Yep. Very, very, very true. And, great way to start out, and then way to really hone it in and fine tune it is just simply paying attention, trial and error. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what we'll do is we'll jump to the hot seat nomination. Obviously, you've been on here before. You're familiar with how this goes. This is someone that you think would make a great guest for the show.
I'll give you a fun one. He's another one of the Wrecking Crew members, Chad Ingman.
Okay.
He owns, I think, Scoville High Peppers is what he grows everything from, he lives in Northern California, and he grows everything from wild looking crazy tomatoes that I'm now growing this year, and just a bunch of cool, very cool peppers. And he also is tries to grow the world's largest pumpkin every year. So he's a super cool dude. I've known him for a few years, and that's who I would get.
All right, Chad, I'll be reaching out. We'll be setting up a time to have you on the podcast, and I look forward to diving in and talking more growing. So, all right, well, Jacob, thank you so much. Obviously,
Thank
there's
you.
still another avenue of this that we can discuss, and I look forward to having you back on and covering that second part, and maybe diving into some other areas based on some, overall discussion that comes up from this episode.
Absolutely, man.
Jacob, thanks so much for coming on. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast again, diving deeper into the world of gardening and really focusing in on what it means to really be able to garden on a budget, as well as, helping pinpoint and fine tune some of those early on growing issues and things that you would experience. So thank you so much for being here for that, as well as, hey, if you like the products that were here featured on Hot or Not tonight, I will have the direct links for Freaky Ferments down below on those products, as well as the direct link to the website so you can check the full lineup out. And don't forget, new episodes drop every Tuesday and Thursday night. So continue to share this out with other like-minded individuals who just love the world of spice, or maybe they're trying to figure out how they can get in and what the whole world is like. This is a great avenue for them to uncover everything to do with the world of hot. I want to have a quick shout out to our sponsors, podvision.io. If you're looking to grow your brand, start your brand, you've hit a bump in the road and you're trying to figure things out, highly recommend checking out podvision.io for all your needs, as well as another great sponsor that we have here is webdx.one. If your website is out of date, it's got some stuff that needs to be updated, maybe you had somebody at one point and you've lost contact with them, highly recommend checking out webdx.one for all those needs, as well as they are able to help your small to medium business grow based on automations. I'm Brandon Swear, and from everything from the world of hot, this has been The Swear Word.